The name of the book is Standpoints, Black Feminist Knowledges, and it is edited by my colleague, Andrea Baldwin, another colleague, Ashley Reichelmann, who cannot be here today, and me, I'm Kwame Harrison, and Jordan is a contributor to this, so we will be presenting on this. I'm going to be talking a little bit about Black love, and this connects to this, and I hope you'll see some of the ways how. Black love is a response to the globally pervasive, spectacular, and everyday forces that normalize anti-Blackness. As a prelude to my comments, I want to just start by announcing that I will be leaving a little bit early today, probably 4:15 or so. 4:45, sorry, 4:45 or so, 15 minutes before 5. Part of the reason I have a flight to catch later on. I'm going skiing in New Hampshire, so I'll be doing that, and I have to catch a bus to make a flight. Because of that, I've participated in these before, and I sort of expected that it would be taking place in Major Williams, but the shift to the inn was significant to me. Okay, well now I really have to leave early to catch that 5:15 bus. I can't just take my bags and run over there in 15 minutes. So I will be leaving early. But the other thing that was significant about this was just thinking about this room that we're in, which I didn't check as I walked in, but I believe it's a Smithfield room.
It is.
When I think about that, I think about Smithfield Plantation, and if you don't know the history of the Smithfield Plantation, particularly the racialized history, it's something that I encourage you to look up. I have served on 19 search committees at Virginia Tech. 19 search committees. Included in those search committees are bringing the former director of the Black Cultural Center, Kimberly Williams, and I'll be talking about her, and 8 search committees in Africana Studies, including the very successful search committee that brought Dr. Baldwin here. I've also participated on a lot of other search committees that deal with people doing research on the Black experience, and I've been on several more search committees that just kind of, I'm not really sure how I got there, but sometimes I wonder the extent to which search committees need to be diverse. How does an underrepresented faculty member end up on 19 search committees while they're here? This is some of the invisible labor that underrepresented faculty have to do, and I just want to acknowledge that. Being on these search committees, and now I'm speaking particularly about the Sociology Department, the Sociology Department had an old practice that I think we've moved beyond, but it was to put people in a place to stay when candidates came to campus, and this place to stay was located on a road called Plantation Road. So when we think about the meaning of plantation, and I know this is different for different people, but what does plantation mean when someone already might have not lived in this part of the country? And a lot of people say this isn't really even the South, that's Mississippi, but in this part of the country, and if you have an underrepresented faculty member, maybe a Black faculty member who already has concerns about that, and their first introduction to this is, oh, you're staying on Plantation Road, how does that make you think and feel? Kimberly Williams and Andrea Baldwin, in their wonderful essay, Black Love, Black Loving, Loving Blackness, cite Black feminist scholar Catherine McKittrick's understanding of plantation logic as, quote, the lasting consequences of a global colonial system set up and justified by those who benefit from the dehumanization of racial others. This plantation logic contributes to women's misrecognition as unworthy of care, concern, compassion, and love. I'm honored to have my name on the cover of this tremendous book, but several times publicly already I've questioned whether I deserve to have my name on this cover in terms of the contributions that I gave, which did involve editing and a number of other things, but sometimes I think this was so much Dr. Baldwin's. However, in looking at page 196 of the book and thinking about the lecture that I cited, Williams and Baldwin write, Black love looks like magic, an alchemy that is capable of creative and revolutionary possibilities in everyday acts. It looks like loving on either side of prison bars, doing the other mothering work that Black women do in Black communities, being in sisterhood as Black feminists, being unapologetic about loving Black girls, period. It looks like acknowledging that we need each other. committed to showing up for each other and committing to racial honesty and realness with each other. Black love looks like the preparation of a table or a piano. It can't be sung alone. It looks like radical social movements such as a hashtag Black Lives Matter, hashtag Say Her Name, and hashtag Me Too. Black love looks like black faces we know and ones we don't know, but trust and love anyway. Black love is living the fullness of ourselves for each other as libation to our ancestors. Somewhere in this capacious definition, in their observations of earlier pieces that were cited in citing of Fred Moten and Christina Sharp, this black love centers the black imagination and refuses to be disciplined and well-behaved. When I think about all of that, somewhere in there I suddenly understand why I was included in this volume and why Dr. Baldwin was so generous to include me in this volume. Looking at various photographs of Dr. Baldwin and myself, and those photographs aren't, I don't know how many are publicly available, but I'm concerned about those that are publicly available. Just to pause for a second, this is a department I am not connected with in any way, and they use my photo as the largest thing in their brochure. You think about the unrecognized labor that we do. Yeah. Looking at various photos of Dr. Baldwin, and again, I hope you get a chance to see these photos, but I hope they don't make it onto the university webpage or anything like that. I've always been taken by these photos, and particularly photos that surround the opening event we hosted for this book. I'm always struck by how much we look like brother and sister. And it's not that we look alike, even though we're both light-skinned, but it's just, there's a love between us. It's a black love between us. And it's always just, it's palpable, and it struck me. At the same time that the graduate students in Dr. Baldwin's Black Feminisms course were learning about and fortifying their knowledge about important and under-recognized black feminist thinkers and perspectives that have been historically devalued and overlooked, at that same time that they were grappling with the ideas that eventually became this volume, Kimberly Williams, then director of the Black Cultural Center, was putting together a Black Love exhibition. As the Inclusive VT Faculty Fellow to the Black Cultural Center, I was enlisted to help Kimberly. I want to highlight a couple aspects of that Black Love exhibit, but I want to begin from the premise that this exhibition and standpoints are intimately linked. The most tangible ways of thinking about how they're linked is to think about Tricia Cadet's amazing pieces that were included in the exhibition and also make the cover art of the book. This is also evidenced by Kimberly and Andrea's essay, which I've already referenced, which centers the Black Love exhibit. Even though Kimberly was not part of this class that put this together, knowing and loving Kimberly and Andrea like I do, it's inconceivable to think of a way that Kimberly would not be a part of this. My contributions to the Black Love exhibit were foremost to recruit faculty to write pieces. I started on my birthday, September 2nd, because anything I write on my birthday is going to be good because it's my birthday. Anything I do on my birthday is. But while I was sitting in Bolo's Cafe working, I was thinking that my mother's probably calling my home phone, wanting to sing me happy birthday. So this became the beginning point of my piece. It's my birthday, and I'm sitting here, and I know my mother's calling me. And thinking about that. It ended up being a piece that I'm proud of about my relationship with my mother, her unwavering love for me, my love for her, which I don't always show like I should, but my love for her. And from that piece, I was able to, thinking and working with Kimberly, in September, reach out to other Black faculty members and say, here is my piece on Black love. Will you contribute something to this exhibit? I was touched that Andrea contributed something, my colleague Letitia Brown in sociology contributed something, Freddie Page from civil engineering, Biko Agazino from Africana Studies, Brandy Faulkner, aka the People's President from political science, Lucinda Roy from English, Larry Jackson from computer engineering, Mena Pratt-Clark, and Nikki Giovanni all contributed things. The topics covered included being a Black child, being a mother, being a spouse, being a revolutionary and a visionary, being Black and finding love in Blacksburg, and so much more. When Kimberly first asked the students to contribute something, following this plan and this model that our contributions could serve as pieces, the students struggled because they were so conditioned to thinking about Black love first and foremost, thinking about love first and foremost as a romantic thing. I'm not dating anyone were things that were said. The concept seemed elusive and impractical to them in this resume building, checklist making world. Even when Kimberly met with them and really shared the breadth of pieces, they still struggled. There are so many times and places on this campus and in this world where our Black students don't have the luxury to be vulnerable. Love is something that's difficult for them to realize. Eventually, through Kimberly's love and caring and gesturing, she was able to bring out the work in them that some of it was last minute, but it ended up being an amazing and wonderful exhibition at the Perspective Gallery last February and into March. In addition to that, this place, Perspective Gallery, that was also had its limitations because it was some place that these students didn't really feel as their own, and as an elite space of art, they weren't really sure if they were comfortable and belonged there. But as these pieces were displayed there for about a month, probably over a month, as we had a wonderful and amazing opening and a closing session with a wave check and a discussion and a mid-exhibition discussion with Arthur Jaffe about Arthur Jaffe's documentary Dreams Are Colder Than Light. This space was transformed, and Robin Scully, the director, said, "I've never seen the Perspective Gallery so active and so many people coming in and so much going on." What I really appreciate about that is Kimberly left this at the end of last year, but this year we've had a number of student events, Black student events with album release events, fashion shows by the students of hip hop at Legacy, and of course our book opening that continue this legacy of looking at this Perspective Gallery, the space that was once seen as a space where Black people were out of place, and suddenly, particularly Black students, put them in place, and I think that's an amazing transformation. In the same ways I think about this book and the important work that this book does in terms of centering students and centering students' work in critical and important scholarship. So those are my opening comments.
Wow. Kwame, that was amazing. Anyways, my name is Dr. Baldwin, and that was really good. Thank you so much. Okay, so this work, Standpoints, when I thought about this, actually Kwame was in the room with me. We went to a training and I met Virginia Tech Publishing, Robert Browder, and I said to Kwame, I think this might be something. And Kwame's also my faculty mentor. And so he encourages me in stuff that faculty mentors probably shouldn't encourage people to do, but he was definitely encouraging. And so I thought of this project as part and parcel of my Black transnational feminist praxis. And I'll tell you a little bit about what that is. So for me, as a Black woman who is also an immigrant, who is also the daughter of very working class parents, my mother is a maid who cleans hotel rooms in Barbados right now. My father's a retired fisherman, growing up very poor in the Caribbean. Coming here to the US, you know, I was told that education was going to be the thing that got us out of poverty. And so that was what I focused on. And growing up in Barbados, I was educated, all my education was in Barbados. Growing up in Barbados, I was surrounded by Black women academics, Black women activists, who, when I hear students talk about their experiences sometimes in the academy, especially students of color and especially women, that was not my experience. My experience was one of love, care, and community. And so when I came here to the US, I quickly realized that university here historically was built to exclude people who were considered others. Contemporarily, however, the university has sought to include people that were traditionally excluded, and by people who were traditionally excluded, I'm talking about folks of color, women, queer folks, people with disabilities, and the list goes on. However, as a person who possesses several of those identities, there are sometimes the way you enter these spaces where you think that you're included, but all you feel is that you're excluded, or you feel marginalized. You feel like you should be at the periphery. And so for me, I figured what students were telling me, as well as what I was feeling, that you don't see yourself in the curriculum. All the classes that I teach are electives. I don't teach any core courses. And all the courses that I teach are about people like me. And so when you don't see yourself in the curriculum, you don't see yourself in the programming, you don't see yourself in the structure, you don't see yourself in the culture, you don't see yourself in the faculty, you don't see yourself in the staff, well, more so in the staff, but in very deep and sustained ways, then there's a cloud of apathy that surrounds this inclusion. And so there are a lot more people that have said this more eloquently than I can ever say it. For example, you have Ashton Crawley, who says that the university is a place of neoliberal capitalist logics and a way of thinking anti-sociality as the grounds for relation. According to Crowley, the concept of anti-sociality is evident in how the university has been and remains a site of struggle and protestation against the flourishing of survivance and abundance, producing knowledge as a limited resource and good, a limited supply and store. And this practice is what Desai and Murphy call crisis mongering. And so crisis mongering is useful for the university to justify and to enforce neoliberal norms, but it has several negative consequences for those left out of the Enlightenment Project, women, non-cis folks, etc. And so there are ways in which, as Kwame was saying, Dr. Harrison was saying, that, there's Black students don't see themselves. They don't see themselves in perspective gallery. They're deprived of resources. I mean, every Black History Month, we have the same problem. You want to bring people, but you hear, we have no money. There's no money in the budget. So you're deprived of resources. And so we are taught that we must focus on survival as we inhabit spaces of precarity situated literally and figuratively at the academy's margins. And so for me, my Black feminist transnational praxis shows me that there's another way. Both Black feminist and transnational feminist traditions adhere to 4 guiding principles, and this is coming directly from Kia Hall, who says these 4 guiding principles are intersectionality, and everybody knows intersectionality because we use and misuse it every day. Scholar activism, solidarity building, and attention to borders and boundaries. And so it is a combination of these principles that form the foundations of this book. So Standpoints is a text that does, and I broke it down into like 6 things. The first thing is that Standpoints exposes the structure of the academy as creating artificial, hierarchical, and peripheral boundaries. 2, it shows that these structures maintain wholly intact and work to keep certain constituencies based on their identities, job titles, and status within and outside the academy in their own separate worlds, working to deter community by using a rhetoric of scarcity. 3, Standpoints demonstrates how existing in such a space can be very isolating and result in a constant struggle for survival for those who find themselves on the periphery. 4, it demonstrates that despite this struggle, however, those confined to isolated spaces in the academy can deliberately claim space and time. 5, it shows that this claiming of space and time can be done through transformative pedagogy that respatializes the academy, And 6, that transformative pedagogy can result in what I define as educational justice. And I've written about this elsewhere. Because it is more than just about providing access, but allowing those who have been recently given access to see and experience the many and concurrent dimensions of each other despite our hierarchical and often arbitrary and fabricated positionalities. This type of vision allows us to create a world of sorts where we can discover the possibilities of connection, collaboration, and coalition, and to just be. And so this is The Soul of Standpoints. Is an anthology that came from my Black Feminism's graduate class, which again, I have people who allow me to do stuff that they probably shouldn't. So the director of my program is here, and she gave me the blessing, gave us the blessing to go ahead. She was going to take the fall if it failed. But it came from my Black Feminism's course, where staff, faculty, and colleagues and students collaborated in a way that we were honest that these barriers existed, but how are we going to create knowledge as an exchange process rather than a deposit withdrawal thing. The text, at the heart of the text was a collaborative pedagogy, which is based on a community and care, a pedagogy that I learned from my PhD journey in Barbados. We wrote this anthology together to show that academic order logics are useless to the oppressed. And it is when we refuse to uphold these that we can create our own world and learn and thrive. And so examples of these, you'll hear an example, but some examples are, we had Jerlyn Morel, who's a master's student, who wrote about Afro-Caribbean women's oppression or resistance using their sexuality. Jerlyn actually ended up creating a business called Our Pussy, Our Prerogative. Well, the chapter is called Our Pussy, Our Prerogative. Her business is called My Pussy, My Prerogative. And just a plug, she would be happy that I plugged this. There's a Vagin art exhibition happening soon that is put on by Jerlyn and her company. And just look it up and buy some stuff. And then we have Kimberly and our chapter. Another chapter is Davon's chapter. I mean, you know, it was really good to see, as Davon was writing this chapter, how it all came together in this big aha. I introduced the concept of the palimpsest to Davon in the class. And Davon is not a sociologist, political science. He's in like urban planning or something. And so he's created this entire term called the palimpsest city, where he is looking at how the structure of the city that we see today is actually written on the racist structures of yesterday and the day before that, of the planning that people who are racist put into these cities. And so when we're thinking about restructuring our cities, we need to think about those things. Like, he created this term, the palimpsest city, and it's in this book that you see it, read it for the first time. And one of my favorite chapters in the book is Jordan's chapter, and so I'll let Jordan talk about his chapter himself. And I'll stop here.
Thank you. For the kind words. So I'll talk a little bit about my chapter and my experience writing, but more I do want to echo this sort of collaborative event that this book ended up being. So that's really the main note, I think. So the sort of succinctly to put, like, what this process enabled me to do was think about and theorize something, or begin theorizing something which I kind of had sort of kicking around for maybe 2 or 3 years, but I just previously couldn't put into anything more coherent. And part of this is the class itself, and sort of looking at some of the things Dr. Baldwin was talking about with different kind of theories of epistemology that don't sort of become valorized within a lot of dominant paradigms of Western social science, etc. But before I sort of go there, so a little background. My chapter is about the sort of anti-pipeline struggles that have been going on past few years, regionally and locally, is sort of really just concentrating on the Mountain Valley Pipeline. And some of the resistance has happened in Roanoke, where I live and I'm from, as well as kind of Franklin County and Bent Mountain regions. And so there was a sort of growing sense of like unease or discomfort that I kind of came to accumulate, in that a lot of the, and I say a lot of, in the sense of a lot that I was hearing this a lot or running into this a lot, this is kind of by no means representative of all of this kind of discourse, but a lot of this resistance discourse really rested on eminent domain as a sort of major moment of injustice, and the transgression of private property by a sort of state as a sort of unprecedented, terrible moment, and this is the problem. And so there's a certain kind of utility, like a legal kind of angle to that, which I kind of understand, and for sure, but I kind of wanted to think more deeply about what it means to think of politics around the anti-pipeline struggles as being this kind of more narrow articulation of private property and eminent domain and such. And so I had sort of two major questions or sort of sources of unease, which one would sort of wonder about sort of how this property came to be construed as private property. What is the role of settler colonialism in positioning and distributing land? So how did my friends, the Coffees and Bent Mountain, come into having this nice farm they have? And then second, this sort of note that, well, we're against these extractive energy projects. These don't happen up here. That's not what we do. And so my other sort of question is, what is the legacy of kind of the extractive energy projects of chattel slavery and the kind of plantation economy in these same regions, Franklin County, Bent Mountain, et cetera. And so these are theoretical concerns, but there's also, I think, really practical and political ramifications that come out of these. So for instance, the 3%ers showed up to several of the sites which I've been at as recently as last summer. These are kind of local militia enthusiasts, aspirational fascists, if people aren't familiar. And so that seems dissonant in the first place. And then so second, in Roanoke County, where significant pipeline progress was going on, the same kind of security force, which is the Roanoke County Police Department, that was sort of helping the sort of pipeline, providing this, is also the same security force that killed Keontae Spencer, who was a black high school student several years ago. And so these struggles are really connected in a sort of way that needs to be, I think, borne out. And it is very material, it is very real. But I just wasn't seeing that. And so part of the problem from this as kind of an idea or sort of observation of mine is it is kind of born out of my experience, just sort of being at events, being at places, talking to people, being at bars, right, things like this. So I don't have a survey, I don't have a sort of traditional empirical kind of response to this. And as I said, nor do I think this is the only form of discourse that's sort of characterized as anti-pipeline struggles. It's probably not even the majoritarian one, but it is an important one. I kept running into this. And so Dr. Baldwin's class first, sort of material that we looked at was really helpful in providing a kind of theoretical, epistemological kind of language of analysis to sort of look at how things can be theorized that might not be recognized or as sort of legible in other sort of social science methodologies. But yeah, apart from that, it really was about the kind of community that I don't think all graduate seminars produce. And so there was really a special kind of process of us all working, we're all in here, we're all working on the same projects, different specific issues, but as sort of Dr. Baldwin outlined, these sort of cohere around a certain kind of paradigm which we're exploring. And so we're all in the same process at the same point, kind of really working on this and talking, so, oh, how do you do this, how do this? Which was really helpful and really important. And so there was this very collective production, truly. And this only expanded when we sort of got to the stage of having editors, which all three added really helpful, productive, critical feedback that really was great, generative, to where suddenly this sort of weird unease of like, man, another guy that's just talking about eminent domain, turns into something that's actually being theorized, actually kind of something I can start to get my head around, and trade ideas with people. So this really did grow into something that was very collective, really exchange-based, as sort of point out, that I'm just happy to be a part of, really, and it's just been a great experience. And so for a graduate seminar, it's excellent. That's really all I have to say.